The Sovereign Mind, 10 Stoic Principles to Become Untouchable. Listen closely. The precise moment someone can predict your next reaction is the moment they no longer need to defeat you. They have already found the invisible strings attached directly to your mind. Every explosive burst of anger, every desperate, quiet search for validation, and every sleepless night you spend obsessively replaying someone else's passing words is undeniable proof that your inner peace is no longer yours. The most terrifying prison in the human experience is the one you do not even realize you are living inside. The vast majority of people walk through life believing they are the undisputed masters of their emotions. They are not. They are entirely subjugated by them. Yanked violently in every conceivable direction by a single sarcastic comment, a delayed text message, an unexpected silence, or the fleeting opinion of someone who will completely forget they exist by tomorrow morning. Modern society casually calls this personality. The ancient Stoics called it slavery. More than 2 millennia ago, while his empire was literally collapsing around him, Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius fought a brutal daily war that no sword could ever win. His true enemy was not the barbarian armies gathering beyond the walls of Rome, it was the creeping chaos inside his own mind. Night after night, by candlelight, he wrote urgent reminders to himself. He did this not because he was weak, but because the most powerful man on the face of the earth understood one chilling, undeniable truth. If you cannot govern your own mind, nothing else in this world can truly belong to you. This is not another superficial motivational speech about staying positive or faking a calm demeanor. Fake calmness shatters under real pressure. True mastery does not. What you are about to explore is a relentless psychological framework designed to transform ordinary people into individuals who cannot be manipulated, cannot be emotionally hijacked, and cannot be broken by the opinions of the masses. This is a discipline that has survived falling empires, brutal wars, intimate betrayals, and centuries of human frailty. These 10 Stoic principles are not designed to make you feel comfortable for a few minutes. They are designed to systematically dismantle the version of you that has been unconsciously surrendering your power for years, replacing it with a person the world can no longer control. Principle 1. Command the pause before the reaction. There is an infinitesimal fraction of a second suspended between what happens to you and what you choose to do next. It is microscopic, silent, and easily ignored by the untrained mind. Yet, hidden entirely inside that tiny, suspended space is the absolute difference between a person who rules their own destiny and a person who spends their entire life being governed by everyone else. The world no longer seeks to control you with iron chains, it controls you with your own reflexes. One minor insult, and you detonate. One subtle rejection, and you instantly begin interrogating your own worth. One delayed reply, and your imagination feverishly starts writing tragic stories that reality never approved. Every predictable, emotional reaction quietly hands another piece of your sovereignty over to someone who never deserved it. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus grasped this long before modern psychology gave it a clinical name. He stated, "It is not what happens to you that disturbs you, but the judgment you make about what happens." Think about the profound gravity of that statement. The external event arrives first, your suffering arrives second. Between those two moments, your mind writes a script. Imagine someone reads your message but does not reply. The objective fact is painfully simple: they didn't answer. But your undisciplined mind refuses to leave the bare fact alone. It whispers, "They are losing interest. You said something wrong. They are replacing you." It is over. Within seconds, your chest tightens, your heart races, and your peace evaporates. Not because reality changed, but because your imagination declared war before the evidence even arrived. This is exactly how emotional slavery begins. It does not start with a grand, dramatic tragedy. It starts with thousands of tiny, unexamined reactions repeated every single day. Eventually, toxic people do not even need to actively manipulate you. They already know exactly which words will trigger your rage, which silence will awaken your deepest insecurities, and which criticism will make you doubt your own sanity. The next time life provokes you, do not rush to answer. Do not rush to defend your ego. Do not rush to prove your point. Protect the silence between the event and your response. Take one slow, deliberate breath. Let your emotions speak to you, but absolutely refuse to let them make the final decision. Every time you master that single pause, you reclaim a piece of your soul that the world has been trying to steal for years. Principle 2. Divorce facts from mental fiction. There is an invisible weapon your mind uses against you every single day. It operates so quietly and feels so deeply familiar that you mistake it for reality itself. It does not attack you with facts, it attacks you with stories. And the most terrifying part is this. Your physical body reacts to those fictional stories as if they were already absolute truth. A message goes unanswered. A friend walks past you in the hallway without smiling. A colleague's tone of voice drops an octave for a single sentence. These are just facts. Small, ordinary, and fundamentally meaningless on their own. But the human mind despises a vacuum, so it becomes a tragic novelist. It writes betrayal where there was only silence. It writes rejection where there was only distraction. It writes catastrophic endings where life has not even finished the first chapter. This is why millions of people are utterly exhausted without ever having fought a single real battle. They are not suffering from the harshness of reality. They are suffering from the horror movies constantly playing inside their own heads. Every fear becomes a dark prediction. Every doubt becomes concrete evidence. Before a single truth is actually revealed, their peace has already been decimated by an imagination that never learned to distinguish between uncertainty and danger. Marcus Aurelius practiced a psychological discipline that very few people have the courage to attempt. Whenever a chaotic emotion began taking the wheel, he stripped the triggering event down to its naked, unadorned truth. No assumptions. No dramatic conclusions. No emotional decoration. Just the raw reality. Because reality is almost always lighter than the suffocating burden your imagination forces you to carry. Truth is remarkably quiet. Fear is deafeningly loud. Do not confuse the volume of the voice for the validity of the truth. The next time anxiety begins tightening its grip around your throat, ask yourself, what do I actually know for a fact, and what am I merely assuming? Facts demand clarity, and clarity is an environment where panic simply cannot survive. Principle 3. Refuse to make others' opinions your identity. There is a prison so entirely invisible that millions of people live and die inside it without ever once realizing they were trapped. It has no concrete walls, no iron chains, and no locked doors. It is built from something infinitely more dangerous, the desperate, suffocating need to be accepted. The exact moment your internal peace becomes dependent on another person's external approval, your freedom no longer belongs to you. It belongs entirely to the people whose opinions you fear the most. Reflect on how many major life decisions you have made that were never truly yours. Think of the authentic words you swallowed because you feared judgment. Think of the bold dreams you quietly abandoned because someone laughed at them. Think of the hollow version of yourself you performed just to avoid rejection. Little by little, you stopped asking, "Who am I?" and started frantically asking, "Who do they want me to be?" That is how a soul slowly disappears. Not in one explosive moment, but through thousands of quiet, agonizing compromises that no one else ever notices. Diogenes, the ancient Cynic philosopher, understood freedom in a way that still terrifies modern minds. When Alexander the Great, the wealthiest, most powerful man alive, stood before him and offered to grant him absolutely anything he desired, Diogenes gave an answer that history never forgot: "Step aside. You're blocking my sunlight." Imagine the staggering level of inner sovereignty required to value your own peace more than absolute power, your own truth more than societal approval, and your own soul more than the admiration of an emperor. That is not mere confidence. That is complete, unadulterated independence from the opinions of the world. Here is the highly uncomfortable truth most people spend their entire lives actively avoiding. The critics whose opinions keep you awake at night are currently lying awake, terrified of someone else's opinion. They are fighting battles you cannot see, carrying deep wounds you did not inflict, and living inside insecurities that have absolutely nothing to do with you. You are sacrificing your irreplaceable peace of mind for an audience that is far too distracted by their own pain to even notice your performance. So, ask yourself this: who would you become if nobody could applaud you, and nobody could reject you? That answer is the closest thing you will ever find to your true self. Principle 4. Surrender the illusion of control. A futile, exhausting war is being fought by almost every human being on this planet at this very moment. It is a war that cannot possibly be won. Not because you are weak, but because the battlefield itself was never yours to begin with. Every sleepless night you spend arguing with the past, every hour you waste wishing someone had loved you differently, every silent prayer begging the universe to rewrite what has already happened. This is not strength. It is pure resistance against a reality that has already moved on. The greatest tragedy in life is not that painful things happen to us. The greatest tragedy is that we spend years trying to negotiate with facts that no longer exist. We replay arguments that ended years ago. We try to rewrite endings that have already been sealed. We ask, why did this happen to me? When the only question that actually possesses the power to set us free is, what will I become because this happened? Epictetus boldly divided the entire human experience into only two categories: things that belong to you, and things that never did. Your character belongs to you. Your choices belong to you. Your discipline belongs to you. But other people's decisions, the passage of time, death, betrayal, the economy, the past, and tomorrow, none of these have ever belonged to you. The moment you attempt to possess what was never yours, suffering quietly enters your life wearing the disguise of hope. Look carefully at your deepest pain. How much of it emanates from the actual event itself, and how much comes from your stubborn refusal to accept that the event has already happened? A broken relationship breaks your heart once. Reliving it every single morning breaks your heart 1,000 times. Nature teaches this lesson flawlessly. A mighty oak tree fights the hurricane until it snaps in half. A river never stops to argue with the boulder in its path. It simply changes direction and still reaches the ocean. Acceptance is not weakness. It is the moment you stop wasting your finite energy fighting closed doors and begin using that exact same energy to build a new path. Principle 5. Forge discipline from agony. There comes a definitive moment in every life when pain stops asking for your permission. It kicks the door down uninvited. It does not care how kind you have been, how hard you prayed, or how meticulously you planned your future. It takes the person you loved most. It destroys the career you spent a decade building. It leaves you standing completely alone in the smoking ruins of a life you no longer recognize. In that deafening silence, pain asks you only one question. Will this break you, or will it rebuild you? Most people view pain as the ultimate enemy. They spend their years running from it, numbing it with cheap dopamine, and distracting themselves, hoping that time alone will magically erase what happened. But pain follows a very strange, undeniable law. It relentlessly hunts those who flee from it. The psychological wounds you refuse to face never disappear. They simply mutate. They become the sudden anger that poisons your marriage. They become the fear that shrinks your ambitions. They become the creeping doubt that whispers every time a new opportunity knocks. Seneca understood a concept that sounds almost impossible until life violently forces you to learn it for yourself. Fire tests gold, and adversity tests great souls. Gold is never purified in comfort. Steel is never forged in cold air. Diamonds are never created without unimaginable, crushing pressure. Nature follows one unchanging law. Everything destined to become exceptionally strong must first survive the very forces meant to destroy it. Why should your character be any different? The individuals you admire most were not built by easy mornings and comfortable childhoods. They were built in sterile hospital rooms where hope seemed impossible. They were built in the lonely hours of the night when nobody answered their calls. The difference is not that they suffered less than you. The difference is that they absolutely refused to let their suffering become their permanent identity. They weaponized their trauma. Stop asking why this happened to you. Ask something infinitely more dangerous. What part of my old self must die right now so that a stronger version can finally be born? Principle 6. Govern your internal monologue. There is someone who has spoken to you more than your parents, more than your spouse, and more than anyone who has ever entered your life. That voice has never taken a single day off. It has narrated every victory, magnified every flaw, replayed every regret, and whispered into your ear before every important leap of faith you've ever taken. The most dangerous lies in your life are never spoken by strangers. They are spoken in your own voice. I'm not good enough. I always ruin things. Nothing will ever change. I am an imposter. The terrifying reality is that after hearing these sentences repeated thousands of times, you stop questioning their validity. They cease to sound like passing thoughts and begin to sound like concrete facts. When a lie repeats itself uninterrupted for years, the human mind quietly mistakes it for an identity. Marcus Aurelius understood that the ultimate battlefield was never the borders of Rome, it was the borders of the human mind. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Focus on that word, revoke. Not ignore, not suppress, but revoke. You have been signing a daily contract with your own insecurities, when in reality, you always possess the absolute authority to tear the contract to shreds. If a friend or a stranger followed you around all day, constantly reminding you of your worst mistakes, predicting your inevitable failure, and mocking your worth, you would cut them out of your life immediately. Yet, millions of people wake up every morning and carry that exact voice inside their own heads, tolerating the abuse simply because the voice sounds familiar. You must put your thoughts on trial. Demand evidence. Treat destructive thoughts like unwanted visitors. They may knock, but you are not obligated to invite them in for dinner. Principle 7. Starve your darkest thoughts. Not every thought that enters your brain deserves your attention. Yet, most people spend their entire lives treating every random cognitive impulse as if it were a direct command from a king. A single fear enters their mind, and they entertain it. A painful memory surfaces, and they build a permanent home for it. They fail to realize the most fundamental rule of psychology. The mind grows whatever it is repeatedly fed. Your attention is not free. It is the most valuable, highly sought-after currency you possess. Imagine planting two seeds in the exact same patch of soil. One seed is fear, the other seed is courage. If you only water the seed of fear every single day, which one will inevitably overrun the garden? The answer is obvious. Yet, this is precisely what millions of people do internally. They meticulously replay insults instead of celebrating their victories. They rehearse potential disasters instead of visualizing possibilities. They breathe life into yesterday's pain instead of building tomorrow's strength. The mind has a terrifying flaw. It struggles to distinguish between what is actually happening in the physical world and what is being vividly imagined. If you replay a betrayal often enough, your body floods with the exact same stress hormones as if the knife were entering your back all over again. You arrive exhausted at battles that never actually took place because you have already fought them 1,000 times in your imagination. Attention is nourishment. Whatever you feed survives. Whatever you starve eventually dies. When anxiety predicts a disaster, acknowledge its presence, but immediately remove your attention and keep walking forward. Principle 8. Crave less, experience more. There is a gnawing hunger that no amount of financial success, societal status, or external validation can ever satisfy. It has destroyed kings who ruled vast continents, broken millionaires who owned everything money could buy, and tormented ordinary people who spent their entire lives frantically chasing a finish line that perpetually moved further away. The cruelest part of this trap is that the victims never realize they are starving. Because the greatest addiction in the modern world is not to pleasure, it is to more. More money, more recognition, more followers, more praise, more control. You routinely lie to yourself, promising that once you acquire just one more thing, you will finally be at peace. But a peace built on one more never actually arrives. Desire is the equivalent of drinking ocean water to cure your thirst. The more you consume, the more desperately dehydrated you become. You do not escape the prison of dissatisfaction. You simply buy better furniture for your cell. Seneca exposed the modern condition with brutal, timeless honesty. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. Look at your current life. How many things did you once pray for? The job, the phone, the partner, the apartment. That you now barely even notice? You reached them, you celebrated for a moment, and then your mind quietly moved the goalposts again. Gratitude is not just a soft, beautiful emotion for greeting cards. It is a fierce act of psychological rebellion against a heavily commercialized world that actively profits from making you feel inadequate. The Stoics never demanded that you abandon ambition, they demanded that you never become dependent on the outcomes. Build vast wealth, but do not worship it. Love people fiercely, but do not try to possess them. Chase true excellence, but never tie your core identity to things that fate can snatch away in a single afternoon. True freedom does not belong to the person who has the most. It belongs to the person who needs the least. Principle 9. Shed your expired self. There is one heavy burden almost everyone carries, yet it is completely invisible to the naked eye. It is not your past mistakes. It is not your financial debt. It is not the people who betrayed you. It is your stubborn, suffocating attachment to a version of yourself that no longer exists. People constantly introduce themselves to the world through their old wounds, their expired identities, and their past failures. They live as if yesterday possesses the divine authority to dictate who they are permitted to be today. But the past has only one source of power. The power you continuously funnel into it. People walk through the present wearing the heavy, defensive armor they built to survive a childhood they have long since escaped. They let a failure from a decade ago dictate their confidence today. While their physical bodies move forward through time, their minds remain heavily chained to memories that cannot be altered. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that everything in nature is in a state of constant motion and transformation. Rivers never hold the exact same water twice. Trees shed their dead leaves without holding a funeral for them. Change is not the exception to the rule of life. Change is life. Think of a snake. It literally cannot grow while clinging to its old skin. The very barrier that once protected it will eventually suffocate it if it is not shed. The identity, the defensiveness, the people-pleasing, the fear that helped you survive yesterday's trauma is the exact thing preventing you from thriving in today's peace. Something old must die before something greater can be born. Ask yourself this paradigm-shifting question. If you woke up tomorrow with absolute amnesia regarding your past failures and the labels people placed on you, who would you choose to become? That choice is your true self. Principle 10. Become untouchable by fate. One day, life will absolutely ignore every careful plan you have made. It will slam doors shut that you were certain would remain open. It will brutally remove people you thought would stand by your side forever. It will dismantle the comfortable routines you believed were permanent fixtures of your reality. In that devastating moment, the question will no longer be how wealthy, popular, or successful you are. The only question that will matter is, who are you when everything you depended on disappears? Most people build their entire identities on a foundation of fragile, temporary things. Wealth can vanish in a market crash. Physical beauty fades without asking for permission. A spotless reputation can be destroyed by a single vicious rumor. Health can evaporate between one heartbeat and the next. When fate inevitably changes its direction, people who anchor their souls to these externals do not just lose their possessions, they completely lose themselves. The Stoics vehemently refused to place their peace of mind in the unpredictable hands of fortune. They understood a truth so terrifyingly powerful that most flee from it. Anything that can be taken from you should never become the core foundation of who you are. Imagine a massive, ancient mountain standing in the dead center of a violent hurricane. The wind screams against its surface. Relentless rain crashes into its stone. Lightning repeatedly tears across the sky. Yet, when the storm finally exhausts itself and passes, the mountain remains exactly where it was. It stands not because the storm lacked power, but because the mountain's foundation reached infinitely deeper than the chaos swirling above it. This is the ultimate Stoic ideal. Do not fall to your knees praying for a life free of storms. Forge yourself into the mountain that the storms cannot move. When you no longer derive your ultimate worth from the things life hands you, you cease to live in terror of what life can take away. You can still love deeply, but without frantic clinging. You can work with intense passion, but without becoming a slave to the results. This is not emotional coldness. This is emotional sovereignty. The final reality. When you finish reading this, the world around you will remain exactly the same. The same difficult people will exist. The same financial pressures will wait for you. The same global uncertainties will loom. But if you truly internalize these principles, you will never interact with that world in the same way again. Real transformation is always completely invisible before it becomes undeniable. The world will continue to test you. Fear will attempt to return. But now, you know the greatest enemy was never outside your walls. It was the part of your own mind that falsely believed the external world had the authority to control your peace. Do not attempt to change your entire life overnight. Choose just one of these principles. Practice it relentlessly in the shadows until it becomes integrated into your very character. Because unshakable strength is never built in one cinematic moment of glory. It is built through thousands of quiet, agonizing, ordinary decisions that no one else ever sees. No one can steal a peace that you absolutely refuse to surrender. No one can control a mind that you have learned to govern. And no one can break a person who has truly mastered themselves. That is Stoicism. That is absolute freedom. Let nothing outside of you decide who you become.